I'm going to be meeting with him at 11 o'clock at the Hubs Tavern. Is it Hubs? Hobbs Tavern down there on Route 16 and 25 in Ossipee for about an hour. And basically what I'm looking for him is to see how far along they are, what they have been able to do. And they have sent out surveys as well. And I think it could be a good learning experience here for us. And the thing is, it's everybody is invited, which is the reason I sent out the email, but the thing is, if we're gonna have a quorum for that meeting, then, it becomes a public meeting. And I know both Jesse Wright and Olivia had expressed interest, but I haven't heard from anybody else. So I'd like to know if anybody else has an interest in attending that meeting, because they say if we end up with a quorum, it becomes a public meeting. And one of the things I'd like to know also, in that case, if Ken, the room upstairs might be available on a Friday, the 11th? At 11 o'clock, it's on a Friday.
Of October?
Of October.
October 11th?
It's the 14th, I think.
Okay, 14th. Thursday.
Friday.
Is that a Thursday?
Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
Friday.
It's Friday,
Is it
yeah.
Friday?
Yeah,
At 11?
at 11. I'm not just saying we would need it, but if we end up with a quorum, then we need that room. We have to relocate it from Hobbs Tavern to here.
I have a conflict that
You have a
exactly
conflict that day? Yeah.
And that meeting's gonna be in Ossipee?
It's right now, it's scheduled at Hobbs Tavern in Ossipee, and there's just gonna be a couple of us. It's more of just a meeting to see what's going on in Belknap County and some of the things that they have done. And to see if there's anything we can learn from them, where they got their funding from, if we could possibly tap into that funding source as well. And I think what Rick is also exploring is if there could be some collaboration between the efforts in Belknap County and Carroll County, and I don't know. But the more information we can gather, like what we learned from Rose is, and what I'm hoping we don't learn here, but it could possibly be, is that there's surveys that have been sent out to the farm community in other areas, seeing what interest there is, have been very discouraging. There's been little support among farmers to get involved in this sort of thing. And so if that turns out to be the case here, if our survey basically says the same thing, then, why should we continue to pursue, creating a food system if the farmers aren't willing to participate? And we now have a quorum, so I'm going to be calling the meeting to order. Called the approval of the minutes. Olivia sent out the minutes way back. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review them. Is there a motion and a second to approve the minutes for the September 22nd meeting?
I'll make the motion, but
Okay. Is there a second?
I wasn't here, so I can't.
Okay. No second?
No, this is.
These are the minutes.
I thought she had some blanks in it. Maybe not. I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. Are there any errors or omissions?
I'm not even going there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there.
You want to take just a few minutes to review them?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Since I was the only one there that's here.
I was there.
Oh, you were there, that's right. I'm
Susan
sorry,
was there,
Susan.
I
yeah,
was there.
Yeah.
My discussion of the minutes centers around our agenda for today.
Okay.
So our agenda for today, our next steps from our notes from the last meeting were to identify expenses and income for this budget year we're currently in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that on our agenda for today. And the next part of that was to work on writing a business plan.
Yes, and I think that was not quite, I think what we did get from Jesse was basically a rough draft of an RFP. And that was what I think the direction that was going in, wasn't it?
Well, no, we were gonna write there were 2 points that we were going to do. One was going to be to set up a business plan for 2017 as much as we could, and write the RFP to begin the listening sessions and the
In the survey.
survey.
That was my understanding
Okay,
as well, and the minutes reflect that. And we were going to seek the assistance of a person named Charlene at the Community Loan Fund to help us do that. And Charlene's name isn't mentioned here, but it does mention the Community Loan Fund.
And since then, Charlene has said they don't do nonprofits.
yes,
They
I
only
had
do
sent out an
farmers.
email,
That
I
got
had talked
from
with Charlene and John Hamilton both. He is the executive director of the Community Loan Fund. And what they both said is that unfortunately, Rose Wilson may have misrepresented a little bit. They do not have funding. They could not really assist us with this. And I noticed the minutes did say that, and it's, but so further conversations with the Community Loan Fund said, well, that's not quite accurate. So what their focus is on, as I think I mentioned, is basically identifying individual farmers and offering assistance to them. So that's where their focus is. As far as a broader initiative such as the county farm or a food system, they cannot help us at all. Funding is
So-
very tight for them.
I think,
But I don't think we should
Right,
walk
we
away
shouldn't
from
walk
that-
around.
that,
This is- but this is the
business
appro-
plan for the county farm.
But this is the approval of the minutes, so, of
Yeah.
the minutes
Yes.
as written, so can we
Right.
call it
The
a
minutes as
question?
written.
Okay.
Yes, that's what we're talking about, the minutes as written.
Can we call the question, or the
Yes,
motion? and-
all those in favor of it?
aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay. All right. Let's get back to the business plan then.
Or back to the agenda.
Back to the agenda, yes. And you had said, picking up on this, you have said that basically we're working on a business plan here.
So.
And that was not, okay,
Yeah.
that was not included. Go ahead, Susan.
The folks who worked on the request for proposal document, perhaps it would be at this point to talk about how that request for proposal and the business plan work together. And then under the other business, or before the surveys and listening sessions, we talk about what this committee was intending to do when we were appointed. And I guess cutting to the chase, our intention was to look, I believe, was to look at the best use of and we talk about it in here, search of the optimal use of county assets for the benefit of Carroll County.
That's right.
And we talked about looking at the efficiency and the effectiveness of what we were doing in the farm, being the farm and the woodlands, and to talk about how we were using inmate labor, and to talk about things such as a food hub. But we seem to somehow or another, and someone let me know that the Conway Sun specifically talked about this meeting today being committed to being a conversation about a food hub.
Well, I don't think it's specifically about a
But
food hub.
anyway,
but,
yeah, it's
Okay.
third-hand information. But I think we do need to look at, for me, the return of funding for the farm, for starters, being that the farm budget is being worked on now, and then to talk subsequent
Yeah,
to the,
they moved us.
to the other items that come into play when we talk about the farm budget, the proposed farm budget for this next year.
Okay, so, okay.
I think of this as short-term, what we need to be doing, and then longer-term with the, broader vision for the farm. And short-term, I think, I'd like to see us focus on, the revenues, expenses for the farm, what the farm is currently doing, and really create a picture for what this resource is currently providing, and then look at that longer-term RFP as looking at what are the possibilities for the future, and how can we improve on what we're doing, expand, redirect, whatever that may be. It appears that we keep looking at that next step, that RFP down the road, but we're sort of missing this piece of what do we have here right now, what's working, what's not working, and what do we need to, at least in the short term, keep things going until we can get to, whether it's spring of this coming year or summer, with a broader picture of options for the future. What do we have here now, and really look at that before we head off with surveys about the future.
Isn't that what we were hoping the feasibility study would do, though, Wendy? No.
I think the feasibility study is where we gather public input, we look at all of the opportunities out there for the farm. I think that's the longer term piece, but I feel like we have not given adequate attention to what do we do with the resource that we have right now in the next year.
Immediate.
Yeah.
So, thank you, because that was what I couldn't figure out how to say. Phase one, we had
Yes.
talked about, and then phase two, we had talked about at last meeting when we were with Rose Wilson. So phase one is to look at what's here, what's the picture here, what's the revenue, what's the expense. And then phase two is go chase some money to see what we can do if indeed it looks like we have folks in the agriculture community, not just the farmers, but in the agriculture community who want to go somewhere else with something else. That was my understanding.
Mhm.
I really like the draft RFP that I think Jesse
Yes.
worked
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I think that's broad enough to encompass a lot of, going in a lot of different directions, and I think that's what we should be doing when we look at a feasibility study. So I don't think we should stop pursuing that, but I think, at the same time that we're tidying this up and getting it sent out, we really need to look at those short-term immediate issues facing the county farm.
When you say that, you talk, is part of the driver on that the fact that it's coming up to the budget cycle?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, has anybody put together a list of those, we have this huge asset, and what benefits is it currently generating for people of Carroll County? It currently generates a little benefit for some of the inmates.
Mhm.
Anything else?
Well, we have information about.
I'm not saying there isn't,
Yeah.
Yeah, we have information, I don't think we've collated it all
Right.
together, and I think that is, something that we should be working on.
Do you want to try to do that together?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do
Okay,
that.
These are the things that tax dollars currently now, or whatever they support, aspects of the county farm, this is what's being derived from it. We could go back and say in the past, not too far in the past, but in the past, these have been supported, and this is how it went out and benefited the community. I'm looking at this as two separate issues, and I gotta believe, I'm actually really interested in the future more than now, but we've gotta deal with today too. So I'm willing to put some effort into gathering the information so we can put out and craft a statement on how we feel about what should happen in the coming year.
I think that's what we need to do.
I think to do that, though, you do need to look at the numbers.
Yes,
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's because it needs a business plan. It's been asked for a business plan for a
Right.
number of years.
Okay.
Now, is that something that the Kendall Foundation would pay for?
I think there are good people right in Carroll County that can write you a business plan. The problem is drilling down the budget of the farm.
It's
I'm
something that
sorry.
NCIC can help with, though.
NCIC?
The North Country
Investment Corporation.
Investment Corporation.
I thought Catherine said she couldn't do nonprofits, that they could only do. Isn't that what Catherine's associated with?
I'm sorry, Becky, who
The
said?
one that Rose was here with the other day, she thought there was some monies to help write a business plan. He has since received an email that said, no, they do farmers, but they do not do
Yeah.
entities.
Well, that's the community loan fund.
Oh, that's the community loan fund, okay,
Yeah.
so the.
I know
NC
that they've been helping the North Country Farmers Co-op, and they're not a nonprofit, so I think, as far as I understand, they help corporations.
So could that be, do you know them? Would that be something that you could
Yes.
ask them about? for
Yes,
this particular
absolutely.
project?
Although I think Steve's been in touch with her, Caitlin Robinson.
I have not talked with NCIC at all.
Oh, okay, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
I guess I'd want to know what exactly I'm asking for.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if we're working on the numbers, would it be okay if I contacted them then?
sure, absolutely. I think this is her card, actually. There you go, look at that.
Thank you.
Serendipity.
And I guess I'm not really sure, what the time frame would be for developing a business plan. How long does something like that take, or would that take for an
No
entity?
offense, if you get the right people working on it, a good person can write a business plan, a short-term business plan for November only, in 3 weeks. We're talking a short-term budgets coming up business plan. You're looking at 2 years' worth of data is what we said we were gonna look at, 2 years' worth of data.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's a snapshot window, the last 2 years. There's no
Okay.
point in going back. We only, and then you look for what can we do to maintain, not to expand or anything, just maintain what we've got while the rest of the plans are being worked on to see where you're going.
Okay.
Okay. And so this NCIC, they have the capacity to do that, and do they charge for it, I guess?
Well, that's what I'll find out. I'll
Okay.
contact them and see.
Okay.
I think, as I have talked with people, what I'm finding is that the funding may be more difficult than what we think. And as we talked last time, the Kendall Foundation has indicated that they might be willing to fund some of the study, but they never indicated that they would fund the full
Right.
study. And they don't, and I never did get any response at all from the Charitable Foundation, none whatsoever. And I think part of the problem is going to be, and this is a short-term problem, is some of the major funders, and that's particularly the Kendall Foundation and the Charitable Foundation, basically are going to be waiting until after the November election. They want to see when the dust settles who is still committed to this project, and that is basically what is the future role of the county farm. Because their concern is that both the makeup of the commissioners and the delegation may change enough that they may say, well, we no longer feel we want to walk down this road, and they will have committed funds to it for nothing. And as I said, in talking with the Community Loan Fund, they made it very clear that they are continually looking for funding as well. So they don't have any funding to give to it. And I don't know, I haven't talked with NCIC, I don't know what sort of funding they may have available. But when I talked with Kathy Ruff of the Land for Good, she made it very clear that based on her experience, and she's got decades of experience on this, that in going forward, you really have to have that funding in step. You have to do it. No one is going to commit to a project like this to do the work unless they're sure they're going to get paid. That funding Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
I want to say that, again, we're in phase one and not phase two, and I would like to think that we need to stop thinking about chasing money for phase two, but think about trying to get money for phase one so that our farm is funded. I think that's the step one. If we have, as we did during the last legislative session, if we have delegation members who are not willing to support the farm with money from Carroll County, then I suspect it's going to be very difficult for us to get money from other places. We're not going to change legislators in Carroll County. We're not going to change their mind or their thinking unless we can give them the needed information that they didn't have when they voted last time. They didn't know that there were X number of inmates that were here so many hours. They didn't know how much it cost for a cord of wood. They didn't know what the profit was for a cord of wood. They didn't know. They were making decisions based on a bunch of numbers that came from nowhere, and we all know you can make numbers say what you want them to say, and that's what happened. And I feel very strongly that we need to get the information together, and we need to do it quickly so it's in the eyes of the public. When people have candidate forums or talk with the persons who are candidates, they need to know what it costs to run the farm.
The problem is you have to drill down the farm. You have to drill down the expenses. Example, labor. Labor has associated costs not only for pay, but for health insurance, for dental insurance. That has to be prorated down. How many hours are spent on the farm in labor, and how many hours is that prorated into health benefits and everything? You can't just take a debit expense. You can't just say we get $350 for a quart of wood, and it only costs the gas and the equipment. You have to drill down electricity. What portion of electricity goes to the farm? You can't just say the electricity is under Public Works, because those vehicles and stuff housed in that building also are used in the farm. So it's the drill down. Will it show profit or will it show loss? Who knows? If it shows loss, okay, so you've got a loss, how can we turn that around? It may be you need more labor if you want to maintain what you have. It may be we make a profit. But the numbers have to be drilled down. I mean, you have to drill it down that far. And nobody has
There's not
drilled
a
down.
overhead percentage that the whole complex uses. I mean, you'd think that.
No.
Okay.
Simple answer? No.
And it might be that we don't make a profit, and the benefits that are going to the
Outweigh.
community outweigh it, and we make a conscious effort as a community. But at least we'll know the numbers.
Mhm.
So last meeting, you guys were working on that stuff, and have you gotten anywhere?
No.
Okay. What is the best path forward for working on that stuff? Did you run into roadblocks?
A few.
Okay. So how can we get there? I don't know if you guys talked about this already. I'm sorry.
It's going to take some time, but I can get the information.
Awesome.
I don't know how quick we can drill it down.
Okay.
And it's the same thing. Prorating it. How do you prorate
Mhm.
it? Unfortunately, with any business, most businesses don't say, the truck was used 4 hours here and 3 hours here. But you can prorate pretty close. Some of the numbers need to be verified.
Mhm.
There's some questions when you look at the expenses. So I think it's
You've got a lot of work ahead of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you do that, or would this NCIC?
If we can get somebody, well, whatever you do
What would
on
you
your
do?
own saves you on.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
And timing wise, if we're wanting it before the election.
well, it's not so much before the election as we need it before the budget is finalized. And
Oh,
help
yeah.
me out here, I'm not quite sure when the delegation actually truly finalizes the budget. Is it December?
Commissioner?
Once it's submitted to the delegation, it's the first week of December.
Okay, that's what I thought,
But
December.
for 28 days, no one can do anything with it. And then it begins in January.
But when is the actual final
The
submission?
last day of March.
Last day of March.
Which delegation meeting would that be?
I have no idea. The one.
That hasn't been set yet.
Yeah, no, none of that's been set yet. But I mean, we have a window technically up until the final day they have to sign it and submit it to March, in
Mhm.
March, to the
Mhm.
state to
Mhm.
get this together to plead a case. The
Mhm.
commissioner's budget's gonna be ready to go to them by when? December.
It'll be ready before Thanksgiving. So
So
about 6 weeks.
we're a commissioners
Mhm.
group, so if we could have as much as we could to present to the commissioners, but if we find out anything in between, then we go to the commissioners who would go to the delegation.
Mhm.
So you're looking at a 2-month window?
Okay.
So March is decision time?
Well, for the commissioners, it's November.
Yeah. But-
if we find anything after that, I'm sure we can go back to the commissioners who can then go to the delegation,
Oh,
because
okay, right.
the delegation has subcommittees that does a lot of their work and then presents the main budget to
But
the
the
delegation.
delegation, basically, it's in March that the final decision is made.
I would like to add to that last year, even though the information needs to be submitted by a certain date, that the delegation attempted to close out further input once they started making decisions. So though they have a deadline for the end of March, if they decide that they're going to approve or disapprove a budget in January or February, they can shut us out. We need to have that raw information available within the next month, I believe. North Country Investment Council, it's my understanding, it is a government agency, primarily funded by the government, and they would work with an organization, but again, they have their schedules. If we can't get the raw data to them, they can't do a whole lot. I look at some of this information here, and I see that we pay $6,000 for trash removal in the DPW budget. I see that we pay $5,000 for electricity. I see that we pay some incredible amount for telephones charged to DPW, and until we can pull out what's actually farm expense and not what it costs to take care of removal of snow in the winter. I mean, that's a real estate expense for sure. I'm not saying that's not there, but it's not the operation of the farm or the woodland.
Oops, sorry.
And we're stuck unless we can, as Becky says, drill down. And as Jesse says, there is, when people are working on salaries and overhead and writing grants, there's usually an assigned administrative fee that says, okay, well, 12% or 18% of what our employees are paid comes from da-da-da, so we'll put this number in there. But until we can separate, and it's been from day one, until we can separate DPW other work from farm and woodlands, we're not coming up with any real numbers. And I guess we go back to our financial management people who are new to this, but they understand what we need, and we need to be firm in our request that that information be available.
The information is presented, but the problem is it's not drilled down. You're paying for 4 cell phones. Well, what portion of those cell phones are going to the farm? You've got to have a proration number on a lot of that. And it may not be an accurate proration number, but it will be better than numbers that have been used in the
And I
past.
guess I'm like, gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
Liability. They pay one large
This year's
liability
information
insurance
used
company
for
here
like last year?
for their
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
their.
It's
How much of that?
It's the same.
What's the insurance on the wood processor?
Is that something that we could pull out of that system to be able to use for, we've got 3/4 of the year that they've been tracking farm versus DPW, thank you. So could we get that information from the system? What's involved with doing that, I guess, and how complicated is it?
I don't know.
Well, Will
I'll
was
ask
here
that
last
Carl's
week,
question.
and he was saying,
Well, just like Henry waiting very patiently here.
I'm just
Hold it.
backing up on this, has the accounting practice actually created separate lines for Department of Public Works and Farming?
No,
They haven't?
not for 216, it's all combined.
Okay, all right.
For 215, it was better, for 216, it's all combined under Public Works. So as Susan said, when you start looking, there are 4 electric bills, there are 4 cell phone bills, there are 4 this.
Right,
Will did say last meeting that we should be
Yeah.
able to get the hours because they've been keeping track of the hours,
Right.
which you can use as a proration system.
right.
So if he's working out of 80 hours a week, if he's putting in 15 hours on the farm, you prorate the phone 15, you divide it out. It's not,
Right.
it's a lot of paperwork. I mean, it's a lot of manipulating, looking at numbers and getting it broken down.
So the primary breakdown point is that if you're looking at, Will, it's how he breaks his hours down, and then we base everything ends up being based upon that.
His insurance,
Right.
everything. You
Yeah,
take
just-
a percentage of it, you break it down, and you put it against everything that is combined under
Right.
public works that
And
go
the
to the
reason
town.
we'd want that figure is that at some point we can get what the net, actually I'd say the gross, that we would consider farm income, and we put that against what that costs, and that gives us the rate. So that's really,
And
that's
it's
a very
make-
finite group of numbers, right? That's a fairly small group of numbers that we need to put together, but I gotta say that going in front of a delegation and budget process and stuff like that, that's what they're gonna care about. The rest of it's kinda like just
I mean,
window dressing.
even if it shows that you're losing money, yes, you have benefits that you're deriving from it. Are we ever gonna be able to say what the benefits are to have the inmates out working in the field? You can't equate a cost with that. But if you say, okay, we've lost this much, what can we see to do to even try to break even for 2017 to keep what we have until we can see if we can expand?
Yep.
I think if we've got good solid numbers, but it's just like the revenue numbers. They've got to be looked at, because I got the revenue numbers and I went back through the tape and the Blueberry numbers don't match. So that's a revenue that you want to make sure you've got very hard numbers on, and you know the exact revenue, because if it's off by 100 things, you're talking $4, $4 a quart, that could be $400 in revenue that's not there. So it's drilling down the numbers.
Okay, so I think we all agree that we want to get those hard numbers and that it's going to take a little bit of work. So how, as a committee, what are our next steps? Who do we feel like we can work on this with staff like Will and us, or is that not going to be enough because there's so much work to do?
I've been away for about 3 or 4 meetings, so I've picked up very little responsibilities at this point.
Mhm.
If it's a question of just figuring out who to talk to, when, what kind of information to get at this point, I'd put together, if you want to work on this together, I'll send you a draft. Just the concepts, everybody look at it and see what you agree with, but the way I think definitely have to talk to Will about it and see how is the, if he said that he was going to keep trying to segregate his hours between one and the other and get it so that it was written down, whether or not he's accomplished that.
Well, I haven't contacted, I have all the numbers. I have
Right.
the expense numbers and I have the
Good.
income numbers for
Okay.
2 years.
Yeah.
But now it's drilling it down and getting that information.
Yeah.
I have not contacted Chuck and stuff in regard to Will's hours, if it's been separated out on Cronus, to see if we can get it.
Right, and that, when you start talking about drilling down, that's an extraordinarily important part of it, because, right, it all sort of hinges on that. Because
But
that's
as far
that's
as-
the factor by which you multiply or divide.
As far as the raw numbers,
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go back and say, where's the wood processing payment, because I couldn't find it, because it's a long printout sheet
Right.
that Will's gone through and highlighted what he felt belonged with farm expense, true farm expense that he knows
Okay.
of, things that he's bought, maintenance stuff and that stuff. But then I started looking at it, and you're looking at electricity. I know gasoline's a big thing, because they say they don't use any gasoline on the farm, but they do use gasoline on the farm, because they take a pickup truck and they go and get parts. They don't, I've got to ask Will, does the delivery trucks that they use to deliver the wood, are those diesel or are those gas? Because if they're gas, then you've got to prorate your gas, even though, that's how far I would think you'd want to drill these numbers down to make them accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Electricity, heat, power, what's the liability insurance on the wood processor? That's an expense to the farm. That's an expense to that. What are the timber sales for the last 2 years? I know they're split between years, but somebody ought to have a amount here that comes in for a timber sale.
They are in this.
The timber buys in there for the expense.
I saw a timber sale as well.
Yeah.
Anything that went to Phil Gilpatrick
Yeah.
is.
So I
revenue
mean,
payment.
that's what you have to separate it out and make sure it's
Mhm.
good and clean, and you can back it up.
Yeah.
How did you do this? We took a.
So I think the question is it doable?
I think
I mean,
it's doable.
is it just
getting all
a
the
matter of
information.
spending the time and asking the questions, and Will has the answers, or finding out who has the answers, and that might take a little more time?
No, I think we know who has the answers. It's
Okay.
just getting the answers and
That's
getting
great,
it
that's a good
plugged
thing.
in.
Okay,
I mean, Will's got great formulas in his revenue side and stuff like that, but as you're looking through the expense side, you see telephones and, you know, stuff like that. Questions that have to be cleaned up is,
Mhm.
why is it being charged here versus here?
mm-hmm,
And what about our finance director? We hired a finance director to do exactly this kind of work. Have we approached our finance director?
I
to
have not.
ask? It just seems like volunteer labor is tough. It's hard. We're on a time schedule. And we know what happened before when we had 3 different sets of numbers.
Mhm.
And then we got it, or 2 different sets, and then we got another set when the auditors looked at things. So I feel like it's very important. We're asking people to make decisions based on information, and we're not giving them the information.
But they're not getting information that they believe.
Well, we can't tell them what does it cost the county farm, the Department of Public Works, what does it cost them for telephone service? Well, do we want to include in that what it costs to put salt on sidewalks and remove snow? And is that all part of farm operation? We have to pay that kind of money no matter whether we operate a farm or not. We have to clear the sidewalks to this building. Who's paying for that, and where does it fall now? And again, it's a portion of Will's wages, it's a portion of the farm workers' wages. What do we have for inmate labor? What's the value of that inmate labor? We don't have that information that we've been looking for a year now, or someone has been looking for it for a year now.
Well, if we get the hours, once we get the hours up to date, and we know we can only go through, if we're lucky, we're in October, we can only go through September 30th, which is most of the budgets work that way. Anyway, because when they start looking at their budgets, you can prorate phone based on Will's
Exactly.
hours. And I have not gone to that extent yet. I got the data like you guys did early last week.
So,
So-
can I ask, should we be asking Will this, or should we be asking Chuck for this information?
I'd be asking both of them.
Okay, but we should
Because
be able
Will-
to get that from
Will
the
reports it
systems
to-
that are in
Yeah,
place.
yeah, because Will reports it to the finance department, and
Okay,
every expense that comes through is, it's assigned an account number, and that's what account's taken out of, so.
But the account's not separated farm versus public works, and that's where we're in the bind, because they combined everything.
Well,
I thought that time system was
Time
supposed
The
to.
system
time
is, yeah.
The time is between Mark, Joe, and Will.
Okay, and so they would have a breakdown of, we spent X number of hours salting the roads, we
Or
spent
3
X.
hours working on the wood, or
Okay.
3 hours working on hay, or.
Okay, so we should be able to get that for 3/4 of the year.
Yep.
And maybe we start with that information, ask
Well-
for that and take a look at it, and then look at this and make sure that what is attributed to the farm should be, and if there are things that aren't, like the telephones, that we figure that piece out as well, and
It's just
figure
that
out what the hours are.
once you get it, it's a simple calculation. You can run
Yeah.
it through an Excel spreadsheet, and it's a simple calculation. You just take everything, whatever percentage of
And
the
I think that's
hours
the
at.
best approximation that we're gonna come up with for.
But at least you
for
can
this.
defend that. You can
Yes.
say, this is how we did it, this is the process we used, and this is the hours that we used.
Okay,
And you go through, is this the printout of the expenses? I know you
Yes.
have them.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
there are
this is
some
what it
questions
looks
when you
like
look at
for
the expenses.
2015. And Will has gone through, this is 2016, highlighting those different things that he attributes to the farm.
But yes, some of the numbers are gonna have to be, I haven't taken it that far, some of the numbers
Well, and
have to be.
salary numbers weren't in here, just overtime
No,
was in
Will
here.
told me the salary wasn't in
Okay.
there, to go ahead and
Okay.
contact Chuck. I haven't gotten there yet,
Okay.
because I have some questions on the revenue side too.
Mhm.
So you have to verify all of that.
Mhm.
I do know that the county finance department is rather busy right now trying to gather some other numbers. I didn't take it that far because when I started looking at the expenses Will had, I asked him where I could find certain things, and I have a couple more questions for him. Once you get those numbers, you can throw them in an Excel spreadsheet, hit a formulation button for, say, you're going to prorate it at, but it's just like the buildings. How much are the buildings valued for the farm? You know,
But
when
that's
you're,
a capital,
buildings are not capital when you're talking the farm. What is used just for the farm, what is used not for anything else. There's a portion of every building that's down there that is used for the farm. The greenhouse, what's the value of the greenhouse?
But at this point, we're actually talking about what the costs are for a farm operation.
right.
And when we do our big business plan,
Or even a business plan for 2011, because the buildings do need some work
Yeah,
and stuff like that,
absolutely,
or they're gonna be
absolutely.
taken down, or whatever is gonna happen.
absolutely.
So, yeah, you can get crunch numbers to present, but you wanna sort of look the next step too as,
Exactly.
and I would say that when you're doing a business plan, you look at all your value.
Right. Well,
It's not just income coming in, you've got, you know, the vehicles, you've got the buildings, you've got, because they've got insurance on them, they've got,
right.
so that is a value to the agricultural side and the public works side.
So would it be good to ask Will and Chuck if they can sit down in a meeting with you guys, or where are we at for? Or is it you're saying they're too busy? or?
I'll ask Will.
Okay.
I would like to see, Becky has been working on this, so if Henry, if you and Wendy are gonna be working on this as well, I'd like Becky to be really involved in it,
Yeah.
because she has
Yeah, I
a
think
good
with all the
sense of all
revenue
those
numbers.
numbers,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
That you just talked
You
about,
don't wanna
having
be-
to sort out
you
those.
don't wanna be
that-
going over
Revenue
ground
is the
if
usual
it's already
side,
covered.
it's expense side.
Yeah.
And if you guys
Yeah.
wanna take it on, be my guest.
No, I think you've been involved in it,
No,
and
yeah.
you've got a lot of background in it, so I don't mean
Exactly.
to,
No, no, but I say, it's just drilling it down and
Right.
getting the
Yeah.
numbers and
Yeah.
getting numbers that you can verify.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I would say if you can keep going on these expenses, I'll try to ask Will about the salary figures and
That comes
pursue
from
that
Chuck.
line.
Will actually said, contact Chuck, and he
Okay.
thought they would be coming in a little bit later. I just haven't taken it that far.
Okay,
Cool.
I'll
Right.
follow up on that then if you wanna keep going on this.
And when you say this, it's the revenue drill down numbers.
It says expense is more a drill
Expenses.
down number.
Okay. Well, that seems like
Because
Good
again,
path
it's putting all that into an Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't come in an Excel spreadsheet.
You didn't get it in an Excel spreadsheet?
That's not in an Excel spreadsheet that you can work with, no.
Okay. It printed out of Excel, so, but I didn't try to manipulate anything.
Right.
You just need some raw data entry done too.
Oh, raw data, and, I mean, no offense, it takes me
Okay.
an hour to enter raw data.
Okay.
But compiling that data, getting to meet with Will and Chuck may be more time consuming.
Well, a lot of
Once
it
you
can
get
be
the
done
data.
by email. If you've got a
Okay.
question, it's just getting the response
Yeah,
back from
okay,
email. I
all
mean,
right.
it's not like you have to have a sit-down, big-down meeting and go line by line. It's,
Okay.
this question's come up, what is this? The hours, I just haven't done the hours.
I just want to be sure that I understand the criteria that we're looking at. Basically, what we're looking at is revenue and actual cost for the farm operation. Okay.
And then if you want to go the price per, then you can drill it down farther if you want. You can go the price per bag of wood, the price per cord of wood, the price per.
Will has those numbers already and has.
No,
put
he
them-
has the cost that he charges. He does not have the cost to produce
Okay, yeah.
because you haven't drilled down the expenses.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
he
he's put in
has-
estimates, so we'd have
He's-
to compare
right.
that, yes.
So you may
Yeah.
find out that what he's charging or what he's getting for his wood due to the expense is not enough. He should be charging more. Or he should be charging less.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
some things like insurance, stuff like that are not rolled into that, so.
Well, and the big thing is, when you look at the overall picture, is the price of the, I'm just gonna use the wood for an example.
Mhm.
The price of the processor, the price of the insurance on the processor to make sure that if it gets stolen or damaged or something, what the replacement value is, the depreciation
Mhm.
of the wood processor, all that has to be compulated in to determine what the cost of a bag of wood is to send out.
Mhm. And I think that's where a business plan really drills into
And
those
anybody that
pieces.
comes in to write a business plan is going to need that data.
Mhm.
And it's gonna have to be something that's believable. So you can either pay somebody else to do it, or you can do it yourself and show how you got to that point before somebody comes in to write a business plan.
I would like to think that our finance manager and our administrator could work with Will and write a business plan. Will did write a business plan at one point in time. It was very basic prior to the purchase of the wood processor. So he understands the concept, and I suspect he's quite capable of doing it if indeed we have the expertise of the finance manager here that we pay to work on the depreciation and the asset, the costs, the real costs. I think it could happen here. I think it should happen here in short order. And we have a delegation that's going to, if they have not already, appointed a committee to look at the DPW budget. And we should have all that information prior to that.
So our next meeting is 2 weeks from now. I'm just
Yes.
wondering if, I've been taking some notes and I might have missed some things, but for our next steps, Henry and I will look at what the county farm provides,
Yes, the benefits of the county farm.
benefits of the county farm. Becky, you were gonna continue to work on the drilling down through the expenses.
And I will contact NCIS
And
and
contact
see if they can help us
NCIC.
out at NCIC.
NCIS, okay.
Know where my mind is.
You gotta stop watching TV.
Yeah, and I'll try to follow up with Will and Chuck to get that salary breakdown from this year.
Okay, but Wendy, you and Henry and Becky are gonna be working on all this financial data.
Right, yes, we'll all work
Yes.
on that together, if that's
Yeah, yeah.
great.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sure you have it, but there's my phone number too. Sorry, I left my wallet in the car, so my car.
And the three of you feel that you can make a pretty good dent in this and have this available for the October 22nd meeting? Is that
So
unrealistic?
That was part of the
2 weeks from today?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just want to get it on my calendar.
Okay. Does that seem realistic,
Would you have a
Becky?
little bit of time after this meeting to
Because you've been
to
working
sit
on this,
down?
Becky. Does that seem to be a realistic timetable?
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
Nice.
yes.
Okay, that'd be great.
8 o'clock?
Yes.
Yes, it's 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're all comfortable then with basically gathering all that data to be put into a short-term business plan?
Well, I think we'll gather the data, look at it, and see where we can go from there. I
Yeah.
mean, it may not be a true
Yeah.
business plan, but it may
Right.
be.
It's just data gathering.
Well, no, it may be, okay, this is what it cost. How can we support that to go to the commissioners and say, this is what it costs to maintain so we can see if there's something better to do with the lands? Can we present it to, keep it going through the delegation and stuff to get support for 1 year?
Mhm.
And do we have ideas of how, associated with that, you may be able to keep the revenue or increase it slightly, i.e. the example, put fertilizer on the fields, you get more bale hays, they had better bale hays, this produced exponentially, so if we use more fertilizer next year on 3 more fields, it's gonna cost us this, but we know by rights, variable weather, it should produce X amount, which would bring this amount of income into the county.
Mhm.
That we may be able to do by November, March, and then yes, work with them to get a longer 2-year, 5-year business plan.
And I think this is all basic information that is going to need to be put together for that next step, that longer step feasibility study is what do we have now? Hopefully, how can we improve production, make that bottom line better? We need to have this information for that step as well as just getting to this budget for the next year,
Yeah.
so.
And keeping in contact with Ken and stuff, because I know a couple, I didn't see yesterday's meeting yet, but the meeting last week, you were talking about the condition of the buildings, having to go forward with whether we're going to have to tear them down or put money into repair. Well, if it's an asset and can be used for the county, we may have to say, to maintain, you're gonna have to put in $10,000 to redo roofs or something like that. Can we support that? Is there a way that we can support that as a committee, saying, going forward? I hear the buildings, my immediate thought is, well, how can you have a learning center without buildings? You know, I mean, it's all gotta work together or not work at all. So if you're tearing down buildings because their condition is so bad, well, nobody's gonna support building another building to put a learning center in. That was one of the premises, is we have buildings here, usable buildings, so, well, a usable building's only usable if you maintain it. Well, if you haven't touched it in 20 years, it's not a usable building anymore. And it's like you're doing the solar arrays, you're hoping. Well, did I hear wrong on one of the meetings that it says we may lose an entire hayfield? Or a good portion of it, yeah. So there's okay, so to save money on electricity, we may hit the farm budget because we're going to be losing portion of field. That's the stuff that you have to look at for the November meeting to say, well, if we're gonna lose it to that because we're saving it on this, don't shut down everything just because we're losing the income from here because you're actually saving on there. That's what these numbers have to look at and say, how's it gonna impact? So I think once we get our numbers, then maybe sitting down with Ken to get his ideas about, you know, are we gonna tear down a building? Well, then how can we support our numbers to say, keep it going this way? Are we gonna lose a hayfield or part of a hayfield, which is gonna do with the
Impact the
revenue?
bottom line.
What else can we do to make up that revenue? Should we have another timber cut? Should we, you know, increase, you know, say to them, give us a person for 2 months to go and really dig into the blueberries and get that really productional for next year. You know, that's what you got to, it's a very short-term business plan to get us to at least help maintain for next year.
Mhm.
And it may be saying, we need another part-time person 5 months out of the year to do nothing but blueberries and stuff, and we know that you should be able to produce this amount and make this revenue on it. If not, you're losing this because we're losing hay revenue production. And it may be a field, I don't know, Ken, it may be the field that they're looking at didn't have a good hay
Low
production.
quality anyway.
Yeah, it's low quality anyway. So is it a big hit? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But should we have enough money in there to fertilize the other fields so we can get a good yield out of them? What was the
Yeah.
yield this year since they added fertilizer? You know, it's stuff like that.
Well, and to
Once
me-
you get the numbers down.
To me, part of this comes down to, is the county gonna be a good steward of the land? And what are the inputs that you need to be a good steward of the
Right.
land? You know, even if it's for the next couple of years while we try to figure out what to do. And I think of, if we're pulling hay off those fields, fertilizer is being a good steward of the land, is putting those nutrients back in. It's not only an economic piece, but it's a stewardship piece.
Well, it's also looking at the change of the flavor, because they're bringing in different inmate programs, if I'm not mistaken now. So are they going to use as many inmates in the field versus getting them into the revitalization programs that they're actually bringing in
Mhm.
and paid for to have somebody set up? So that's a whole nother. I mean, you talk to people in Carroll County, they think the farm should maintain because it's good for the inmates. But if they're doing a different programming that
Right.
it's going to be less inmates, then again,
That's another consideration.
can we defend that to
Yeah.
keep it going? Some
Okay.
businesses lose money, but people want to keep them running.
Yeah.
Do we feel we've covered that particular topic?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to discuss then Jesse's RFP?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you put it together really nice.
Myself and Olivia, I won't take all the credit.
You did a great job with it. I think, before getting any specifics here, do we feel that this captures the tone of what it is we're looking for?
Yes. Can I ask what SWOT stands for? I missed the last meeting and I don't know what it
A
stands
SWOT
for.
analysis, strengths, weaknesses,
Opportunities?
opportunities, and threats.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, okay.
Jessie herself itemized, highlighted in yellow some of the questions I think she had, which is
Yeah.
understandable. And those can be very easily corrected.
I was wondering if we should include the farmer survey under here as well. You know, we had talked about surveying farmers. We talked, one of these items is listening sessions for stakeholders. But I didn't know whether we wanted to, and then a public opinion survey of county residents. But I was thinking another component of this might be to have, whoever we can find as a consultant, assuming we can find funding, help us put together that farmer survey as well.
Well, and I think Rose had actually mentioned doing a survey of the stakeholders as well. Whether it's just the farmers or it's the restaurants or whatever. So I don't know that. I think the public one might, you mean drill it down specifically for farmers?
Well, item 4 on this RFP was conduct a survey of county residents to determine needs of taxpayers, provide input to the county farm and land facilities. But I was thinking of adding it
To the
I think we wrote that assuming that we were asking the farmers as well as the general public, so assuming that they're county residents.
Okay, I was just thinking that we might want something specific to farmers to capture some of what Steve has been talking about, a buy-in to some of these different
Mhm,
options.
I
So
think-
just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
That's-
I think it's important. I think the list that's on here is not necessarily all inclusive. And Olivia had cautioned us maybe last meeting that there are so many farmer surveys out there. Before we ask them to fill out another one, let's
Right.
look a little bit deeper at the answers they've already given. So
Okay.
if we need a survey, let's make sure that A, they haven't been asked these questions already, and then B, that we're asking the specific questions that we need.
Who has done these other surveys, Jessie?
I gave you the copy of Janet Wilkinson's report from Carroll and Oxford counties.
I didn't get that.
Okay.
Did you send that out? Because I was looking for that.
No, I didn't send it out.
Yeah.
I can send it again, and it's
Yeah,
on
would you
our website.
send it again? Because
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank. You probably did, but I'm just drawing a blank.
sure.
Because
And
we don't want to duplicate it.
Exactly.
But by the same token, I'd like to know what those surveys are that are going out there, because
yep,
we may find that collectively, they basically have already answered a lot of the questions that we'd be looking for.
exactly. I think that was Olivia's point.
Yeah, so there's no need to do it. But the thing is, how do I want to frame this? We basically have taken on 2 charges. We've decided to take on 2 charges. One is just take a look solely at the farm, and as you say, the cost, expenses, and so forth, revenues of running the farm. And the other was, based on Andy Kendall's idea, is could the farm play a major role in the nucleus in creating a countywide food system? But the countywide food system is based on the fact that enough of the farmers in the county will be willing to participate and be involved in this to make it worthwhile. And it was my understanding that what we hoped to determine in the survey was, is there that farmer interest? Because if there is no farmer interest, then why go ahead and focus on creating a countywide food system? Their participation is what makes it work. So, at the feasibility.
So when you say, sorry, just for clarity, when you say countywide food system,
Yep.
you're talking about some sort of aggregation and distribution hub?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think we should just be really specific about our language around that.
Yep,
Because,
okay, all right.
I think you're absolutely right, but I think what happens in if the RFP comes back and says, nope, not worth it, shut the whole thing down. Why do we do a survey? Or, yep, this is the perfect place for incubator farms. Or, yep, this is the first perfect place for. What happens if the feasibility study doesn't reflect the fact that a distribution hub is the best answer?
And it may.
It may not.
It may.
So I'm just
Right.
I think we don't want to get ahead of ourselves in designing a farmer survey before we know. It's chicken or egg, I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess we need further discussion on that. I would hate to see us spend, and I'm just making up numbers, thousands of dollars to do a feasibility study on looking at a countywide food system, if in fact there are never going to be enough farmers to make that thing work to begin with. Now you can say, well, the feasibility study would find that out. But how would the feasibility study find that out? And I'm just guessing that they would do that through surveys. So to me, and way back when, we had, well, the timing, we were unsure of the timing. I think we had felt that a survey was crucial here. If we were looking at one of the components, one of the things we wanted to study was a countywide food system. And we recall that, I'm not pointing fingers, but it was Andy Kendall who put that idea on the table, saying, this is what we should be looking at. This is one of the components we should be looking at. And so our feeling was, retracing it, is that one way to determine that was through a survey. And Becky put a lot of time in coming up with what I thought was a very good survey.
Oh, I don't take credit for that because I'm going to take one step back further. You sent out the report from, was it Farley, Massachusetts Fair, that they had done a survey of their farmers.
Okay.
Basically, most of the questions that I put into the survey that we thought we were going to send out actually came from their feasibility study of farmers to support, and they found the same thing. They would not support something regional, so they had to go a different
Exactly.
direction.
And
So it's the same type questions, because as I said
Yep.
to the committee, they're not just talking people that grow corn. They were talking people that did wine. They were talking people that did cheese. They were talking, it was the agricultural survey that they put out, and they did ask things like, is it a family farm, or is it a new startup farm? How long have you had your farm? 1 year versus 100 years. Is there a reason why you would not support regional thing? Is it production? Is it, so it was not, it was based on a feasibility study survey that had already been sent out in Massachusetts.
Right, and we really haven't looked at the survey for quite a while, but I thought it basically touched on, it asked the right questions. The kind of questions, the
second
answers
survey,
which
not the
would
first
help
one.
us in determining whether in fact, one of the questions we had in the feasibility study was a countywide food system feasible? Was there enough support for that countywide food system? And so, what I think we've debated is, as you said, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do we do the feasibility study and determine the survey in the feasibility study? Or do we do the survey first to determine whether that's something we should even consider?
It
This
just
is
seems
the
to me
rough
too,
draft
that
about when we
in
changed it
talking
from
with
farm
farmers
to
in the area and also
I see
from
this. Okay.
information that we
I don't know
had
yet.
from
A
the
producer,
chair of the
right?
Farm
Changed to
Bureau,
Yeah.
producer.
that one of the interests they may
We changed
have
it to producer,
is
right?
having a little additional land on the county farm.
Yes.
So that they could expand their farming, not necessarily collaborating with anyone other than the county farm.
Mhm.
So that,
So-
as Frank Riley so well said, for many of our small farmers, why would they want to collaborate when they can't even meet the need that they have at this point for the demand for the food? They have all they can do, they're making money on their farm stands from their little family farms, and maybe they would want to have something that would help them with supply, but likely not working with other farmers.
Yeah. What I remember him saying was, he says, why would they want to grow additional wholesale when they can sell retail?
Exactly.
And I thought he summed it up very, very nicely in that one
Exactly.
sentence. So that's the problem. Wendy?
Well, I guess what I was suggesting about the survey, the farmer survey,
yeah.
is rather than us taking that on ourselves, can we roll it into this RFP, and whoever the consultant is, they can tell us when the timing makes the most sense. Does it make sense at the front end of the feasibility study, in the middle, at the end? That's kind of where I was going with bringing it up.
Okay, both Andy Kendall and Kathy Ruff from the Land for Good both said that we should not do the survey. They both are very emphatic on that.
Okay.
That whoever we basically contract out to do the feasibility study, they should do the survey.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah, I
both
think
felt
that
very
makes
strongly
sense.
on that. But based on conversations that I've had with people, with Rose Wilson, with Rick DeMark, they have sent out surveys, and Jesse has surveys as well. And what they have found is that the farmers are unwilling to really to participate and get involved in this.
But the question that we're asking in the RFP is not, do we create an aggregation and distribution center? It's, what are the best uses for the county farm?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, what, Jesse? What?
The question that we're trying to get at in the feasibility
Yeah,
study, in
yeah,
the
yeah.
RFP, is not, is aggregation and distribution the best use of the county farm? It's, what is the best use of the county farm? So if the farmers aren't willing, or are unable or unwilling to participate in an aggregation and distribution hub, the question of what's the best use is gonna find that out.
Well, no, that's right. So, but what I'm saying is, and I'm probably doing a poor job of expressing this, is our initial focus on this was based on the comments that Andy Kendall made, as the Kendall Foundation. And he was wondering if the county farm could be a food hub, a processing center, because it already had some of the facilities there. That would be an integral part of a county-wide food system. That was one of the ideas that he put on the table. And so to get an answer to that, we would need a survey. And in talking with Rose Wilson and Rick DeMark, who've done surveys, the responses that they have gotten from their surveys is that, well, this is a great idea on paper. The survey says that farmers are unwilling to get that involved in it. So if we basically are doing a feasibility study in hopes that the feasibility study will determine two things: a business plan for the county farm itself, which is what we've talked about this morning, or the county farm and lands becoming a part of a broader county industry here, so to speak, we may already have the answer to that.
But Jesse's drilling it down.
Yes.
This
okay.
feasibility study, yes. Could this be added into the feasibility
Yeah.
study? Yes. But what I think Jesse's RFP is doing is, again, drilling it down. Public survey. Do you support the county farm? Do taxpayers want to see the land at the county used for the benefit of Carroll County? If the answer to that is no, end of your feasibility study, period. So that's why they're starting out with a community-wide public survey. And the feasibility study can be written in points 1, 2, and 3, you know. If the taxpayer overwhelmingly says no, then the report would say, the feasibility shows that the taxpayers are not willing to support any agricultural means at the county. You're done.
Sell it to someone.
And I imagine the proposals will break out the different elements.
So
of
if it
the
says, yes, we're
project.
willing to support, and I'm sure they'll word it as, if it's self-supporting, if it's losing money, if it's making money, if it produces revenue. From that, then you would say, okay, let's do phase 2 of our feasibility study, which is therefore contacting all the stakeholders to see what the best interest is from the farmers, the winemakers, the cheese makers, the young farmers of, you know, of Carroll County, if it's leasing land, whatever. Then you do the secondary survey to your targeted groups that says, okay, the taxpayer is willing to support. Now let's get into more listening sessions and drilled surveys to say, what are the needs that we can put out there to be supported. It may not be the farmers producing vegetables that want to go from retail to wholesale. It may be the young farmer that says, if I had 3 acres of land to see if I could make it as a farmer. Then we come back and say, they're ready, they want lease land. Or it may be the wine person or the cheese person that says, I'd really like to get going bigger. I can make $20,000 worth of product in my own house in the state of New Hampshire without any problem. But I'm getting to the point where I need something bigger. Do you have an area that I can produce it, or do you have a mechanism that I can hub it out? Because we got to get away from the corn stalks and stuff. There's so much out there now between wine and cheese and honey, I think the feasibility study would be in phases. Phase 1, I think, is what they put out. It's great. General public survey. What do you think of the farm? Are you willing to support it? Whatever their questions they ask. And secondly is then, once you get those answers back, phase 2 would be, and listening sessions, talking to people. Because a lot of people don't know the farm's down here still.
Right.
The second thing then would be, okay, drill down the feasibility study, the next phase 2. Where do we go from what we've got from the first
Yep.
amount of data we've gathered.
Absolutely.
Because Belknap's, I mean, their feasibility study, like it's, not Belknap's, Cheshire, I found out about a lot of birds and bees and wildlife and stuff like that, but did they ever answer the true question about what can the farm, they're actually trying to lease their farm now, and unless you've heard anything different, I haven't heard anything that's been quite successful down there yet.
Wendy?
Can I make a motion that we move forward with the RFP? We get the questions answered that Jessica has highlighted, things like how many listening sessions would we like, so that we can get this in front of the commissioners before our next meeting, hopefully get their support for that, and also as a follow-up, provide a copy to the Kendall Foundation to see if they would be, as we hopefully get responses to this RFP, what sort of support they might be able to provide to us.
Yeah, I would think it'd be a good idea, once we fill in some of the things that Jesse yourself has highlighted here, that if possible, we do run this by somebody.
Yeah,
Basically,
absolutely.
just to review it, to make sure that they feel that we've captured the essence of what we're trying to do. Personally, looking at it and comparing it with the surveys that Rose sent us, I think this captures it. But it might not be a bad idea if she was willing to have Rose Wilson or maybe Andy Kendall, someone else just take a look at it before we send it out. Damon?
Two things. I would think that the farmers are probably at their peak busy season right now. So I'm wondering if you'd want to give the survey out to the farmers when they might have more time to answer, because I imagine they're harvesting at the moment. And then the second point is, we've been at this for months, and the farmers haven't seemed to react at all. So I'm wondering if, sort of on its face, there's just not a lot of farmer interest. So I've got those two questions in my mind.
Well, I'd say they've been in their busy season through most of the time that we've been working on this, and so I think it would make sense to, if we are surveying anybody, winter is probably a better time.
Well, the listening sessions aren't just for the farmers. they're
Right,
for the
this is
public as well.
public. And the survey we're talking about now is public. It's not
Not
directed
just
at the
farmers.
farmers, it's directed at Carroll County residents. So it's a broader base.
Yeah. Okay, there's a motion on the floor basically to adopt or accept Jesse's RFP, answer some of the questions that she's highlighted on there. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I would suggest under item 3, you'd put X's in there for listening sessions. I'll just throw out the number of 3, that way they could be held, over in the Wolfboro area.
Yeah.
So the Ossipee area, and then somewhere up in the Conway area.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's just,
Okay.
And filling in the blank, we have 8 people on our committee.
Yes, there
I
are 8
believe.
people,
Okay.
not 7. I have a question on this as well, and that is on the listening sessions. And my question is based on the fact that, as I mentioned early on, I talked with 4 farmers. And this wasn't a general public, this was 4 farmers. And I asked them about the county farm. And then these were 4 people who spent at least, if not full-time, part-time farming. And they had absolutely no opinion, no information whatsoever on the county farm, none whatsoever. So I'm wondering, if we have a listening session and we ask, I think, so what sort of brief introduction are we gonna put out there? How are we gonna basically prepare people or give them something to think about? We're asking them for answers and responses. And if the farmers that I talked to didn't have a clue about the county farm, what right do we have to expect the general public to come in and say, okay, let's talk about the county farm. What do you think about the county farm?
Yeah.
What we don't want to say, I don't know, tell me about the county farm. What does it do?
Of course
I think
we
there
want
needs to be
that.
some pre-prep here. To basically, to frame what the county farm is, what it does and so forth. So that when they come to a listening session, they've had time to really think about this. And the responses that they're giving are going to be meaningful and more thought out than just sitting there thinking, okay, I don't know what this is all about. Because that's the response that I got from 4 farmers. They didn't have a clue.
Well, now we're going back to our original goals, which was to do
Yeah, I guess I would say that really the outreach materials regarding the county farm, that's not really a consultant's responsibility. That would be for our committee to put together, and hopefully some of this information about what's happening here right now can feed right into that outreach about the farm, and I would see that needing to be done before the listening session, so
Yep.
that we're getting information out to people so that they can develop an opinion if they don't
Yeah.
have one, or at least know what the issue is about.
Yeah,
What if the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you went to a farmer and said, we have, I'm gonna say 475 arable acres of land at the county farm, or whatever the number
Mhm.
is, and so far we're making, I'm just picking a number, $8,000 on blueberries on 400 acres of arable land. That's gonna get their interest. You got 485 acres of arable land that is just lying fallow. I mean, X amount of hay. I mean, you can put back, but what the farm generates for the size of it and its infrastructure and stuff like that, to a guy that's trying to make a living off of 12 acres, we just freaking right out. So I have a feeling that once, the point is that they just don't know. They're not even aware that there's 400 arable acres of land that's producing $12,000 worth of gross income, not even net gross income in a year. That kind of information will farmers going to get their interest in, well, maybe it's worth paying attention to. You mentioned something about 480 acres of arable land.
well, this has become part of the listening session.
Yeah.
If the more information the public has,
Yeah.
the better informed they're gonna be, and the more contribution they can make in the discussion.
Right. And then the availability of buildings, where we've been talking about the fact that it isn't just putting a seed in the ground now, it's about, people learning how to add value to their crops, so that when they're doing their little retail markets and stuff like that, all of a sudden, there's how many square feet of floor space with power? A roof, that's important stuff. And they don't know about it, but that's what those listening sessions, and your point being is that that's the kind of information that, well, we're gonna have a listening session to discuss these assets.
Exactly.
That's really the way I look at it.
Exactly. And,
Okay.
and this is the thing that we have to understand, and I was talking with a representative just the other day, and I've said this here. We have to take a look at the value of a county farm. If today, the commissioners and the delegation decided to create a county farmland, the county would probably have to invest multi-millions of dollars to create what we've got here now,
Right.
between land and buildings. It is an incredible county asset.
Yeah.
So the question is, as we say in our thing, the optimal use of county assets for the benefit of Carroll County. And it is an incredible asset. How do we get the best use of that to the benefit of the county?
Okay, so back to your point, we
Yeah.
should have PR materials prepped before the first listening session.
Yes,
Yes.
And
yes.
perhaps the first listening session is here with a farm tour component.
Yep.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
yep.
So we have months to come up with those PR materials then.
Right. I think
Or
we
is that-
do- I think we do want to look at the time frame that you've got in here as well, though.
Yeah.
If we look at, the RFP is ready, we get it to the commissioners, let's say next week.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a process of
Yeah.
advertising, getting the responses back. I don't think we're gonna see anybody ready to start this, and we still have to secure funding for it as
Right.
well until probably January of, and
Yeah.
maybe even later.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Once we get them all in, then we have to decide as a group who to go
Right.
with, and then get that approved, get the budget approved, get funding, February or at the earliest.
Yeah, and so I don't think we can be looking at having it all wrapped up by spring of next year. So we may want to put in a number of months as opposed to so if they start in February, do we say we're gonna get this done in 6 months, in 9 months?
You're talking about the listening sessions now?
No, I'm talking about the whole RFP.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because, one of the items that's highlighted that we need to look at is, what's the time frame for getting this done?
I think that none of us really know. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely don't. That's why I highlighted it. So maybe
Right.
that's a question for Rose Wilson.
Okay,
Like, if you were to take on this project, what would you expect for a timeline?
okay.
Because, I mean, otherwise we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Exactly.
And that's why I keep reverting back. We've had a number of targets that we wanted to do,
Right.
and we've gotten so far away from them because before the meeting on August 10th, we had a meeting where we said our short-term goals were going to be the public piece, get the public piece out there about the farm, what it does, what it produces, where it's located, you know.
Yeah,
Then we were going to do the next year's funding cost, which we're working on now.
yeah.
Then it was going to be the RFP. And then we were going to have our group also dealing with the Learning Center, because in that questionnaire about the best use of the county lands, it's also, would the taxpayers support a Learning Center down here as well?
Mm-hmm.
Because we wanted to keep the mesh group working with the delegation group on the Learning Center. So when you first started, Henry, I thought you were talking about doing the good, you know, writing up what the farm actually does.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sort of got back into the finances. So are you still
Yeah.
willing to
I think
put
both of
together
those components need to
something
be done.
what
Oh, yeah,
can be?
definitely,
yes.
yes.
I mean, we
Yeah.
actually have a Facebook page out there that doesn't have anything on it right now because we haven't had anything written.
Could you
To put
invite
on
us to that?
Yeah.
That'd
You
be
want to be an
awesome.
administrator of it?
Okay.
I mean, that just
Yeah,
allows
I
you to
mean, then-
post
then you
on
can
it.
post
So,
stuff,
yes. I just haven't taken it any farther because we
Sure.
sort of detoured from the
Right, yeah.
publicity side. Ed's got his agricultural center site, and he always posts when the farm meetings are and stuff like that. It's just another way to get even more people attending these committee
Sure.
meetings if we want.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the Facebook page that I have up, is there some reason why we're doing double duty? If we all agree that we're moving somewhat in the same direction?
Well, you've got administrative rights.
Well, we didn't discuss that, why have two? 'Cause
That's
there's
right.
already over 350 people that have liked that, that's 350 people you can communicate with. So we should
We
talk
just
about
need
that.
to, yeah, that would be great. We could combine it into one, because he's putting up all the meetings on it now, and
What page is it? I'm sorry.
that's the Carroll County.
Carroll County Agricultural Learning Center.
And then I just made the Carroll County Farm Committee page, and it hasn't gone anywhere because we got so far away from it that I
Right.
just stopped it at its creation.
Right.
So if we could come up with a joint name that serves both purposes and stuff, I think that would be a great way to get the historical data out. A lot of people
Mhm.
don't even know
Yeah.
when this farm was formed.
Yep.
Just follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't believe you can change the name on the page, because then you'll lose all your likes, which cost funds to do that, which nobody paid for. So, that you don't wanna lose those likes.
Can you add to it?
You
Because
would,
only
yes, you can
because
add
it's
to it, but
specific.
The name, I think, has to stay the same. I don't know if you can change the
I don't know.
page, but I'll try it if I can.
Without losing the likes.
And I'll just add
Well, you
whatever
can,
administrator
you
want to
can,
add.
you can change your name on a regular page without losing all your friends and stuff, and contacts and stuff, so I don't know.
I'll try, but I can add anybody, I can add you all as administrators.
And what would the name be?
Well, we'd have to work on it.
Whatever anybody wants.
Maybe we should do that now.
Well, let's
Well, we-
can do
yeah,
the
we
RFP
have a-
first, Jim. It's-
But,
But I like that as an outreach, you know. Hopefully we will have outreach material soon, so we can.
so you're saying contact Rose and see if they took on a project like this, what their
Yeah.
timeframe
And
out would be?
Exactly.
Yeah, and then, so,
Would
you
you
know,
be
with
willing to
that,
do
we
that?
just,
Yeah.
then we
Okay.
just need to fill in dates, discrimination clauses
Jessie's
that the
gonna do
university
that.
has.
She's gonna
so-
contact
or
Rose
not
and
the
see.
university, the county. So it sounds like other than the number of blueberry plants, we've gotten most of the answers.
Well, wait, no, hold. Okay, under general terms and conditions, consultant will have how many months?
We're gonna ask Rose Wilson about that.
To
Okay.
see if
Well,
she took
yes,
on
okay.
this project, how many months she would be looking at to complete it.
Okay,
Because she would have a better sense than we do of the planning involved for setting up 3 listening sessions as well as
Yeah.
collating the data and putting together the final report.
I don't think we should sit here and assume that she's gonna do all this gratis.
I was just literally just asking for a time estimate,
That's
Okay.
all.
Yeah,
like
Okay.
so I can fill it in.
Okay.
Right.
Because
Okay.
the other thing is like you said, the RFP costs money to advertise. So you've gotta either,
so that's a question when it goes before the commissioners
Right.
is, do you have the funding to
well,
advertise
go back
this?
to the original thing though, is that, it wasn't supposed to cost taxpayers money, so that's,
That's right.
we may have to put that in the new budget to advertise it, because you're looking at February to start it anyway. We may have to put it into the new budget for next year to say, we need this money to advertise to get a feasibility study done.
How much does it cost to put out an RFP, advertising wise?
You know, all depends how long, how big the ad is.
Where you sending it?
About $100.
Okay.
How nicely we ask the newspapers to do this for the Carroll County Farm.
Right. Where you send it in distribution? Is it just in Carroll County, we're gonna advertise it?
I imagine that there are some, like there are nonprofit websites that you can post
Listservs,
it.
yeah.
Listservs, right.
You can hit every, I mean, there's other ways to hit every town columnist. I mean, I write the Effingham Town column, I know they're always looking for that.
Perfect.
The libraries disseminate information, I mean, it's.
All right, what's the next yellow one there?
Proposal to be emailed by date to the county administrator.
And that we have to have finalized first, so
Right.
we just,
How about 30 days after whatever date we put it out? Is
yeah, I
that
think
long
that
enough?
sounds good.
30 days?
So on the day that we put it out, I'll fill that in with 30
Right.
days.
Okay.
Well, Ken will have to do that because we have to
Well,
give it to the commissioner,
whomever.
right, so. And where it's gonna be returned to is the Carroll County Administrator?
Yeah.
And then I think the discrimination clauses can be added here at the county.
Yeah. I figured there was some kind of legalese that they have to follow.
Equal
But then
opportunity
again,
type stuff.
I also
Okay,
assumed they
all
had a
right,
budget.
All right.
No, this committee was formed and that would be.
So you fill that in then, Jesse, the last include discrimination clause?
I actually think that there's probably a county
Boilerplate.
a boilerplate
Oh,
that,
okay,
that's
all
here.
right.
I don't want to miss anything or put anything in
Okay.
that they're not supposed
Okay,
to.
so we'll leave that to the county then?
Ken,
I'm sorry, what?
is there discrimination and clauses you put in on your RFPs?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Would
if
you
she
include-
sends you the rough draft,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
completed, you can put those in on the bottom as
Yeah.
long as it comes in on a Word
Okay.
document?
Sure.
Or just send her
Okay.
what needs to be.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Well,
Oh.
I'd like to review it before it goes on the paper.
Well, this would be just going to the commissioners, because they have to review it before it goes to the
Mhm.
paper, so.
Okay, I'm getting a little bit picky here, but I noticed throughout this, she refers to our committee as a subcommittee. And I never thought of us as a subcommittee.
We're a commissioner-appointed committee.
Yeah, but no, it's the subcommittee
Oh,
decides
well.
to award. So I think that should be changed to a committee rather than a subcommittee.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on the,
Is that our mission statement? That was what I was questioning.
Yes.
Is that our true mission statement
what's that?
that's written here?
That was what was in the minutes from the
Okay.
meeting before.
Okay, from the meeting before, but I'm trying to remember what was actually put up
No,
on
no,
the
no,
board.
from the meeting that you decided on this.
Oh,
the mission
okay.
statement. I
Thank
wasn't
you.
there, but Olivia came up with that.
We used to have it written on the board so I could remember.
Yeah. I'll have to,
Was that the mission statement?
yeah.
Yeah. No, she's got that right. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the RFP? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? All right. So you'll complete this
Mm-hmm.
change that we've made, and basically, and then at the next meeting, we'll send it along to the commissioners? Is that what we're doing?
I don't feel like it needs to wait that long, but
Okay.
I
All
can
right.
do this afternoon and send it to
Okay.
everybody for final approval.
We can't. That's illegal under the
Yeah,
91A
the right to
law.
know, we can't do
We
that.
can't
The
approve.
motion
that.
I made was that we fill in the blanks and
Yeah.
approve it
We
with the
just-
blanks filled
We just
in.
approved the basic.
So she
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
have to send it
Oh,
out.
oh,
Once
okay.
you do
All
your
right.
All
completions,
right.
you can
We're-
send
we're all
it.
set.
Send it
Yeah.
to Ken.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Great.
Again? Okay, that's good.
And he'll take it.
To the
So next steps
commissioners.
for him, he's all set with. You're gonna
Right.
take it to the
He's gonna be
commissioners.
filling in
That's-
the very last timeline there, the legal clause, the discrimination clause, and so
Great.
forth. Ken will fill that in.
Great.
And then it'll go to the commissioners
Then it'll go
next
to the-
Wednesday.
Go to the commissioners on Wednesday.
And it would be worth sending an email from our committee asking whether the commissioners will fund the advertising costs that are usual for RFPs, and then we will try to develop a list of outlets for electronic purposes. You know, the people that have come and spoken to us that may be interested in responding to an RFP, that sort of thing.
Mhm, mhm.
But I think we want to do the public advertising the way the county does traditionally, and where that has a cost, we need to ask them to cover that.
Yeah.
I'm missing something here. Okay, I want to be sure I'm understanding the steps. Okay, so the commissioners now have this, and we're asking the commissioners basically to fund the advertising to send this out.
To approve the concept of us going out for requests for proposals, as well as to fund the advertising cost for putting that RFP out.
Okay, well, this is the RFP. So the next step is to send it out basically to see if someone will now bid on it to do the work that we're requesting. But we don't have a penny in funding at this point in time to do that.
That's what I'm saying. They will either say at their commissioners meeting, yes, we can fund it out of this year's funds to advertise.
But, okay,
The commissioners
Yeah.
have to make that decision.
Right.
Then
Yes.
they would have to defend why they are using that money to do this.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're going to have to put it into next year's budget and defend it with
Or
the
we find
delegation.
free
Or we
avenues.
find free
I'm
funding.
not talking about the advertising, sending it out.
To pay the guy to do the
To
work.
pay the guy to do the work.
Oh, no, we don't
We
have
haven't
that
gotten there yet.
No, we don't.
Right, and
Okay, let's follow through on this. So say that we send it out, and then next month we get 3 different firms of people who say, Rose Wilson says, yeah, I'd be happy to do this. And this is what it's gonna cost you.
Mhm.
Okay, that's great. So we don't have a penny. We have absolutely no funding whatsoever to
Right,
do this.
That's the commissioner's job to either legitimately find the funding in the existing budget.
But that's
or
where we
request it
either
from the
have to
website.
say,
or we contact Kendall.
or we contact
Association.
Kendall, we contact the,
Right.
Carroll Foundation.
or we have enough data
Yeah,
from this to prove that the county needs a feasibility study, and how do you convince the taxpayer to support it through the delegation members to get it in the budget?
okay.
I know they say they won't
Yeah.
bid on it until they
Yeah.
have money in
Yeah.
hand, but there's somebody, believe me, there are people out there that will bid on it. Because you can always turn down an RFP, that's the
Oh,
point
no,
of
you
an
can't,
RFP.
right. No, I understand that, but I don't want us to get in a situation where, 4 or 5 different organizations of people say, yes, I think this is interesting, I'll do it, and it's gonna cost you $10,000 or $15,000. Rose Wilson said it would cost $50,000 for her to do this.
50?
50. Kathy Ruff said, I can probably do it for a few $1,000s. The point I'm making is there's an incredible range here,
Right.
an incredible range. So, believe me, I'm not all of a sudden saying we can't do this, but I'm hesitant to take it through all these steps and then get people back saying, yes, I can do this within the time frame that you say, and we say, but that's great, but we don't have a penny.
But these are arguments or discussions that you've had with the commissioners.
Ye-
In one sense, we've
yes.
done our job, is presented them with the next step they need
Yes.
to take.
Oh,
Now they need to take
okay.
it. I'm willing to support them. They need to
Oh,
do
okay,
stuff.
that's, I just wanted us to clearly understand as we're
Right.
moving along here,
Right.
that we don't get carried away with the excitement of this whole thing and not realizing that, a very crucial step is there's no money.
Well, this is the other option, is to put my hand.
Well, and the other thing,
Go write a check.
but the other thing is nobody is going to give us any money to say, here's $80,000 to see if you can get a feasibility study
Right,
within
right.
this cost. So
We
you
don't
gotta
know how much
have,
it's gonna cost.
you have to have the
Right.
cost to be able to defend it.
Exactly. And so, I mean, which came first, the chicken or the egg? So I understand that. But I think what we've got to understand is, as we're going forward on this, that we're gonna reach a point where all of a sudden, someone's gonna say, okay, I can do it for this amount of money. And we feel, after reviewing them and talking with them, that this is the best deal we're gonna get. Now we've gotta get the money.
And then the commissioners may say, start your grant writing and see where the
That's
committee
right.
can come up
That's
with the
right.
money.
That's right.
The problem is it would have to be in a budget somewhere, because even if it's a
Yeah,
grant
that's
coming
right.
in, it's gotta
Right.
be in a budget to be able to be
And
spent.
I think this was one of the reasons why both Andy Kendall And Peter Benson said, we want to wait till after the election before anybody commits any money here. Well, the fact of the matter is the election is less than 5 weeks away.
Right.
So that no longer is an issue, that we're stalling here for a couple of months. But
So do we feel like we have 30 days in between when the proposals are due and when we make a decision? Is that long enough to secure funding? I think that would be the question
Yeah.
that you're asking, really. Is
Yes,
like,
yeah.
is there
And I
is
don't
that
know.
enough time?
Yeah, I don't know.
Nobody knows, right? Because if
No,
it's probably
because-
enough to secure 1,000, because
What's
we could
the-
put it in the hat,
What's
but
the
not.
result of running over the time limit?
I don't know. Whatever we write in the RFP.
I mean, you
Yeah,
could go
I mean, we-
45 days. That would put you through, say you get it out by the end of November. 45 days would put you out to
Well, you have 30
mid-February.
days to get it in. So
Right,
that's
and
December.
then
45 middle of February.
say
yeah.
45 days till the decision's made. They put it in within 30 days, you got 45 days.
Do you want me to change it from 30 to 45?
No, because I think we need to get the proposals back to know what the cost is.
But there should be a
gonna
clause in
Exactly.
there that the decision will be
Will be
made
contingent
one,
upon funding.
not contingent, because then you won't get anybody to apply, but it'll be, what's that clause you use about open positions here? When you make a decision about it's until filled or something like that, you make it so that they understand that the decision won't be made within 5 days of receiving their RFPs.
Mhm.
So you could say bids due in within 30 days, decision within 30 days, that gives you 60 days.
That's what we have in there now.
Yeah, so-
Yeah, and a decision doesn't mean we've lined up all of the funding. It may be, we really want to work with you, we're trying to secure funding. We would be looking at a starting date of X down the road.
Because no matter what, if you're gonna do it next year, there has to be some amount of money placed in the budget so that it can be spent if you get funding in.
Okay, well, what if we have a starting date of spring 2017? That gives
Well,
us a
I
little
think
more
March,
wiggle
right.
room without a specific date.
That sounds good.
Okay, should we motion to change it since we
Yeah, we're
already?
gonna have to change that then, because we got final presentation held in the spring of 2017.
Oh, no, I thought we had taken that out because we were gonna find out about how long this process would take.
Yeah.
And so we'd say it starts in spring 2017, and then once we get a sense from Rose Wilson about, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it
Mhm, mhm.
is, we
Exactly.
fill in that.
Okay, and you're gonna be talking with Rose Wilson to get answers to those questions?
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
But
okay.
yes, you'll have your budget, it has to be in the state by March, so
Yeah.
we have,
Yes.
so you would want your bids in before,
Bids are still gonna be due in 30 days after release of the
Mhm.
requested proposal. But what we're doing is we're giving ourselves a little more leeway
Right.
onto deciding who it is and
that's the time you
Securing
need
the
the
funding.
longest. The
Exactly.
bids you can get in quicker,
Exactly.
but to make the decision, you want them to know it could be a 3-month, it
That's right.
could take 3
That's
months to
right.
make the decision.
Yes.
That's right.
so.
And most people that do this
Right.
understand that.
And I mean, and you're right, we need to get through
Yeah,
basically
whatever.
a process here in which we determine which firm or a person is gonna do the best job for us, and how much it's gonna cost.
We may not have a say in that.
No, we don't.
Your commissioner body may change,
Right.
and they may decide they want to
A-
take full responsibility of
Well, that
making
we
the
don't-
decision.
That we don't know. But we can't ask for money until we know how much money we need.
Exactly.
Right.
So there is the process here.
Okay. All right. So we need a motion to add in
To amend.
To amend.
decision to be made by spring
Okay.
2017.
Why don't you make that motion, is there a second?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay,
make
all
the
those in
decision.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good, okay,
So moved.
Perfect.
all right.
Dry. Sorry.
Okay, is there anything else on the RFP? Okay, we were talking about the listening sessions. And getting the information out there. Now, how are we gonna go about doing that?
Well, part of what the three of us are working on, you're more the financial side of it, but we're putting together.
No, I'm talking about the listening sessions.
I know that,
Oh,
but
okay,
the
go ahead.
information for putting out the pre-information of what it's gonna cover, here's the listening session of the county farm, here's a little synopsis, 175 words tops, probably closer to 40. that describes the fact that we're reviewing the use of the assets that are currently owned by the citizens of
Okay,
Carroll County.
so the three of you see that as part of the mission that you're looking at, as far
Yes.
as looking at
Right,
the
yeah.
benefits
That's the
of the
outreach
county farm
materials
and
that
also
we
From your
finances.
point, that when you've talked with people, well, I think it's someplace in Ossipee. I mean, that's,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
extent of the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got to put out a little bit more of that, and, you know, a glimmer that there's an opportunity, there's sort of endless opportunity, and here's our starting point, this is what we have, this is what's being underutilized, we want to talk about ways to
Mhm.
fully
Okay.
utilize it.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's what
And
it's
that
gonna be,
needs
I'm
to
just
go out
making it
before
up.
we
Yeah.
even,
I would
because the
like
listing
to
sentence
see
in
us
the
find a
RFP.
day before the snow flies or gets too deep to offer folks a chance to come and walk around the facility.
Right.
And I think if we could do that in November, that would be worthwhile. And I think that we have people on our delegation who have never walked
Right.
around the county farm, and I think it would be helpful to offer that, especially to
Okay,
the
well, I
newly
think that's a good
elected
idea,
folks.
since, this is one of the things when we're crafting this the first step on the first one, is to try to get it on site and
Yeah.
at a time of day and a time of year when people can actually see what's
An
here.
informational meeting,
Right.
Yeah.
not a
Yes.
listing session.
Right.
Yeah,
Come
A
learn
farm
about
tour.
Carroll County Farm.
right.
Farm tour.
Yeah.
November. Do we want to pick a day now?
Yes, let's do that.
Or just see when?
Well, you need daylight, so it's gonna have to be between 9 and 3 o'clock.
Yep.
Then I think you do it
We
on a
don't
weekend.
wanna do it during hunting season. do we?
Well, that
Well,
goes until
well,
December
November
6th,
will
it's
be-
gonna have to be.
We'll be in the middle of hunting season, so,
right, yeah.
Well, but
Yeah.
otherwise you're talking December, so.
right, yeah.
Well, if we
Can
get
we
some
hunt
shot,
on
we
the
will
farm?
have coverage.
Yes.
Well, you can also, who knows, they might decide they wanna hunt on land.
Yep,
I think to get the most people here, you should do it on a weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree, Saturday.
and we
So
don't
you
get
got
too close to Thanksgiving.
5th.
So we're looking at the second or third, second Saturday probably be about the best, right?
That's
I-
Veterans Day weekend.
Yeah, and that's the Association of Conservation Commissions meeting.
Yeah, I was thinking that was also
Yeah.
some extent of it.
So the 5th is better?
So
Uh, the 5th would work.
Or the
That
second.
might be before full rifle season
It
starts
is.
too.
That's also
It is.
Yeah,
before
so that,
election.
so should we shoot for November 5th?
Okay.
That's
Who
what,
do-
We have to get advertising
I'll
soon.
pull that.
Yes, how are we
So we
gonna
have to
get that
get
out there?
material
Yeah,
pulled
yeah.
together.
How are
Okay.
we gonna get the advertising out there?
I'll put it on the website.
We've
we
all got
can-
and we've all got
We can also
social
discuss
media.
about it next week at the commissioners meeting.
Yeah, cause they
Or
have to
what's
prove
coming
it.
oversight, we'll see it.
We can also, once we have
Can you
promotional
put the
materials,
paper?
we can put it on the UNH Cooperative Extension. We can send out a postcard, an electronic postcard thing.
We can send it out on all our exchange sites that we have.
Yeah,
Right.
And who's gonna lead it?
I guess we need to talk with Will, don't we?
that's, yeah.
So make sure he's available.
Okay, so it's gonna be the 5th, Saturday,
We do
November,
order the-
what time?
Yeah.
What's gonna be the time here?
10 o'clock,
What time?
10 o'clock?
10 o'clock? Here at the county farm.
Let's just make sure Will's available, right?
Guaranteed won't open.
If Will isn't
This works for
available
me.
from, we'll say from 10 to
Oh,
12
yeah.
a day, what
Try
is
to
the
get physical
other
together
option?
Before we start emailing back.
You've got
Yeah.
committee members here.
Yeah. that would
We've
be
got
good.
committee members here.
Well, and-
Committee
and
members are,
We can have Babson do it too, if you want.
commissioners?
Yeah.
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 Some of
Yeah, so
them.
we
of
should
course-
we should get a hold of the date for the commissioners.
Because no
November
offense, you
5th.
probably
Yeah,
should
10
break
a.m.
people apart. If you're gonna do a tour of the farm, instead of moving 50
Absolutely.
people at a time,
Right.
you probably want more than just Will there anyway, to take small groups around and give them a more intimate tour of the farm.
So maybe we could ask that the commissioners and Will work with the UNH extension folks who know a whole lot about the farm and the woodland. Yeah.
Are we gonna do any advertising in newspapers on this?
Well, once we get it put together and know more of the details, I think we can do a PSA, I mean, we could put it,
Yeah,
a
public services,
PSA,
Yeah.
whether it's with the papers, the radios, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure
Okay.
Mount Washington Valley and OKQ and them from the North Country would broadcast it as a PSA.
Mhm.
And who's writing the PSA?
Well, once we get the
We'll be-
details
Yeah.
together, we'll.
Yeah, well, Becky, you, Wendy, and Henry are gonna be
Yeah.
putting that together.
Yeah.
So,
That'd
yeah.
be great.
Yeah,
I
so
think Ed
we'll
could
have
do a
something.
video.
What's that?
I think Ed could do a video, he's got a lot of camera expertise.
Evening's an upgrade for me.
The video was already done. The
Yeah.
delegation has watched it, everybody's watched it, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Post
Okay.
that on the Facebook.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So are we good,
Yeah.
are we good with that?
Let's pick a meeting time. Yes.
So someone's gonna reach out to Will on the extension, so Olivia and,
Yeah, I'll send an email to Will, Olivia. I can CC the commissioners.
How extensive is the tour going to be? I'm just curious.
I don't know if we figured.
I would say if we did the same tour that we did with Andy Kendall,
Yeah.
that was quite,
The only thing that
except
we.
they didn't, there wasn't a tour into the old nursing home, and I
Right.
think going into the old nursing home might be helpful.
How much room is left in the old nursing home with the Culinary Institute going in there? Is there still one wing?
No, all they took was just a dining
The
room.
dining room?
That was it.
And maybe we just ask a representative from the culinary school to be there to show people through. I would think that they would just love that. They're working hard to
I'll get in touch with Len.
outreach.
The only other thing that I would like to see included on the tour, which I didn't get with the Kindle tour, is one, an explanation of the water hole down there, the pond,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
two, the hayfields, because no offense, the hayfields, they were talking about hayfields, I had no idea what they were talking about. Because the hayfields down here are not the hayfields that they generate the most hay out of, it's,
The ones where, with the blueberries and then next to the jail that goes down.
right, goes down and around, but unless you walk a hayfield, you don't realize the scope. I mean, the blueberry field seems small when you hear Will saying he's taking off 100 bales of hay off of a field, so maybe
Might-
just to extend it just a hair when they do the tour.
Well, we may also want to take a walk by the wood pellet boilers as well. It's just another feature of the property and of the complex.
I'm gonna ask one more question here. How's the walking trail coming? Okay. There is a walking trail here, and I
Yeah.
know they did have somebody
No,
that
it's
was,
not.
well, somebody was gonna volunteer their time and it hasn't.
Right, it
panned
never
yet.
happened.
Okay. But that's another potential.
Yes.
It's been a potential for, 6, 7 years now, but it's never fulfilled its potential.
Well, it was cut open by the Kingswood High
Right.
School students, but it hasn't been kept open, that's
Right.
correct.
And Wendy and I have been working on it,
Yeah.
but just nothing.
But that's why I say, that's a whole nother potential to offer county
yeah.
residents.
And
You
at
know.
one point, wasn't the insurance company for our employees working on funding?
There
something like
is
that?
some funding for the trail, both from the insurance company as well as Friends of the Nursing Home. And it really comes down to how accessible do we want to make the trail? If we hook it in between the administration building and the nursing home, I think it could be great to get nursing home residents out there. But then you're talking about surfacing that we go through that money very quickly. So we really need to decide,
But I
those
mean,
sorts of questions.
that could be, if you're doing a public tour,
Yeah.
That
that
could be a
could
discussion,
be,
absolutely.
that could be part of
Yeah.
that public tour to say, we'd like to complete this walking trail, there's so many people in Carroll
Yeah.
County that could use it, but,
Yep.
It seemed to me it was a reduction in our costs for insurance for employees. If we had that walking trail, it seemed like that was one of the reasons the insurance company was supporting that.
and then if we could name the buildings. I know you guys have got like the white building far down, there's a pumper in it or something, I mean, to really go
Yeah.
over, cause I don't know which building houses what, or where they're located, and we're talking
Well-
possible learning center too, so it'd be nice to
In
know.
that sense, having a small scale map,
Yes,
would
Yes.
The buildings
Yeah.
on it, and then
Yeah,
a list
I
of what
think
this
that-
building.
as a handout, that would be very helpful.
I can actually work on that. My brother-in-law and I came up a couple of weekends ago, and he has a drone, and we actually put it up.
Cool.
in the
Oh.
county complex. So-
Cool.
You're dangerous.
Yeah, so we have imagery around the county farm. We're careful not to go over the jail, so it's hard to capture all of the acreage, but we do have some images over the buildings, so we can try to work with that.
That'd
Yeah,
be great.
yeah.
That'd be a great
That'd be
handout
great
for
to
a
put
farm
out
tour.
Yeah.
and put
yeah,
up on the
but
page.
Yes, I was
Whatever
thinking
handouts we
Facebook
could
page
have,
as
I
well,
think
yeah.
would be helpful.
Yeah,
You actually
okay.
put it on the CD.
So that's for
and
November 8th?
Drone flight on the CD.
Yeah, we could put, I do have the video footage.
That's voting.
I don't have
That's
the,
why it's stuck in my head.
the
November
still
8th.
images.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jesse.
but-
Thank you.
Very much. Is there anything else?
The name, if we're gonna co-share the page. If he can change the name from the
Okay,
agricultural.
let's get, all right.
What is the current name of your page? Ed?
Yeah.
The Carroll County Agricultural Learning Center.
How about the Carroll County Farm and Agricultural Learning Center?
Or,
I like that.
If you can add it
Okay.
to one word.
That's all encompassing? Do we need a vote on that, or just?
Well, it's Ed's page,
It's
so I
Ed's,
guess he
yeah.
gets to decide whether he
Yeah.
likes it
Yeah,
or
well, I mean,
not.
we're making a recommendation here, so I think it should be a vote here.
Sure.
So moved.
Yes? Is there
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
So
can I
next
make
meeting is
a quick comment?
of course you can.
No,
There's
it's
one
a-
component you just missed. You didn't even talk about the delegation being invited to this. You
I
didn't
think
talk-
we did.
Well, no, I
Oh,
mean, the last
you're right.
segment, you mentioned about having a farm tour and everything else. You've mentioned that no one physically was there. Everyone has watched the videotape
Yep.
of that meeting years ago. And that bridge has to be still established.
That's a good point, that we make sure they be invited.
It is,
The
yes,
invitations
yes.
to the
Well, we're
delegation.
watching this, so you're already communicating.
Well, no, but
Yes.
an invitation from this committee
Yes.
to attend would be
Exactly.
nice as well.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, but they have been brought up at the meeting.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
delegation was brought up at the meeting. It's just,
But I say, we can send out an
Yeah.
invitation to
Yeah.
the
Yes.
delegation
Yeah.
to save the date, the same thing, because
Yep.
they're involved in politics.
you know,
And
I-
who's sending that invitation out?
Once they get the,
Once we once we
Information.
get the commissioners and Will on board, we can finalize, here are the things that we wanna tour, and then we can send it out.
The
I'd
other
be happy
thing-
to help with that.
the other
Okay.
thing that would be nice to send out, no offense, if we're going to maintain this long-term, is why not also send out a save the date to the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the schools, and anybody that wants to come in that way can also have a
Absolutely.
tour.
Yeah,
Especially the young farmers groups.
Yeah.
The
Maybe
planning
Farm Bureau would be
commissions,
good.
The planning commissions, I mean, anything we can send out to get people down here to actually do a tour and information before the surveys go out would be,
Can we just have an RSVP on the invitation so we know how many people to expect? And I'd like to see the invitation before it goes out.
sure, yeah.
well, we'd have to get the blessing of the commissioners anyway before we
Yeah.
really send it out, so we'll have it by next meeting.
Hopefully.
It has brought up a good point here, and that is, as we were doing some of this discussion, it's through my head, and I apologize for not bringing it up. But the delegation is obviously an important part of this whole thing as well. And we can sit in, we've talked about funding and budgeting and all of that. But it's the delegation that's gonna make this thing work. Whether it's short-term or long-term, their support is crucial to all of this. And I think that we've got to convey to the delegation, even though there's an election coming up, commissioners may change, delegation may change, but that their participation and their support on this going forward is important as well. It's more than just the commissioners going before this. That the delegation support and participation in this is crucial as well. And I think it's important that we keep that line of communication open with them and keep them involved in this whole process. As was said early on, that one of the things that made the Cheshire County feasibility study so successful, may feel that the results weren't all that was intended, but what made it successful in going forward is that both the commissioners and the delegation supported it. And we're talking here today, short-term goals, long-term goals, and nothing is gonna happen unless the delegation clearly understands what we're trying to do and they're willing to support it. And so I will look right into the camera and say that I hope that they will continue to support it. If they have questions, we certainly try to answer them. We welcome their participation in this process. I appreciate Representative McConkey and Representative Comeau being here. I think it's important they understand and support this project as well. And if there's nothing else, I'll accept the motion.
I'm sorry, I
Representative
have to
Comeau.
make a final comment.
Oh, you can.
I always go out on the limb, I'm sorry Mo's standing behind the camera, but I have to hold the camera because the tripod's wobbly today. In the beginning of this meeting, to speak frankly, it was obvious to everyone in here that the financial snapshot of the way the farm has been operating is in question. Is that a correct answer? Does everybody observe that to be a fact? That the snapshot was a little bit difficult to fish through?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the comments speak for themselves.
Okay? The delegation agrees with that and agrees that we all have to go in a better direction. We all agree on that, both committees. So I really, this is basically asking everyone to not only stay positive, but do not politicize this. We all agree. The delegation agrees with everything you're saying. Probably the reason, I'm only speaking for myself, the reason why the delegation voted the way they did was because of what you've discovered yourself. So I think if we all work together, the delegation and the commissioners in this committee, we will find the best use for the county lands. That's
Yep.
my comment.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next meeting is 2 weeks from today.
Yes.